Good morning, campers, and welcome to Radio Camp Half-Blood, a Percy Jackson read-along podcast. I'm Bea.
And I'm Zack.
And this week, we started Percy Jackson, The Titan's Curse, so we're on Chapter 1. My rescue operation goes very wrong.
Oh, yes, and it most certainly does? Question mark, question mark, question mark. And I gotta say, starting a new book, having a new mood. Like, right now, I am in, Podcast Studio 3.0. It feels like I'm in, a nuclear bomb shelter. There's just, flock everything. Maybe I'm in the 70s. There's just shag carpets, and, oh, God, it's terrible.
Yeah, you were... Off mic, you were telling me that you went to Goodwill and started yelling into the carpets.
Yes, that's something that I did. I went there to get some books and some movies, and I just saw this plush everything, and I just started screaming into it, and I'm like, this sounds perfect for podcasting. So I spent the last couple days editing everything and just putting things together, and we're set for this new year, new book, and let's get it on.
New book, new me.
Oh no, I'm still a hot garbage fire of a mess, but everything else around me is clean.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I've been busy with Christmas stuff, mainly. I was just telling Zack I put up 300 lights. I have 600 to go outside, and then I have to put the bows on the garland. We still haven't put up our tree, which is quite tall.
Oh, on the Judy garland?
A different garland, but she's also very appropriate for Christmas, as long as you don't talk about her storied and sad life, and just talk about that one song she did.
Oh, you mean A Star Is Born?
And then you hang it upon the highest bough.
Just like the Munchkin in The Wizard of Oz.
That's a myth, Zack. No Munchkins hung themselves.
I mean, I don't subscribe to that theory, but if you look out in the background, maybe, just maybe, okay, we are
It's a bird, Zack. Anyway, we're getting way off topic right off the top.
So, Bea, what did you think of this new chapter? I mean, this is an entirely new book. A lot of things happened in the last cliffhanger. So, what did you think of the first chapter?
Well, I had some things confirmed right off the bat. It's very vindicating to have that happen. So I assumed that Percy and Talia might have somewhat of an animosity thing going on, but for the most part, they'd end up friends. I didn't expect them to start kind of in media res as far as they've already established that they're friends now. So this takes place during winter break after the last book. So it's been a while since then, because that was in summer, and then now this is winter time.
Yes.
And since then...
Give or take 6 months? 6 months later?
Maybe even less than that, but yeah, it's been established that Percy and Talia are kind of like a team along with Annabeth, so I was kind of... my suspicions were correct that they were going to kind of cast her more as a friend role than a villain. Imagine if she just was reanimated immediately, was okay, well, where's Luke? Because I agree with him on everything. I didn't think that was going to happen.
So what happens is Thalia puts on a cloak and ties Annabeth to a railroad track.
Yeah, and then she swirls her waxed mustache. Yeah, I didn't expect that to happen. Yeah, I think that probably later in the book, in the series, there's going to be some stuff with Talia, reckoning with her previous dynamic with Luke and whatever, but as far as right now, she seems to be allied with Percy, which is kind of what I was expecting. It was a little weird that it kind of jumps right into it. We don't really see how that dynamic was established. They just sort of go oh, well, she showed up, and then now she's sort of the golden child a little bit because she's the son of Zeus, which is he's the big shot god. She has seniority, as Percy puts it, on him, so she kind of is an expert in a lot of things. She can do things that he can't, which we'll talk about. She has some sort of reign over magical things that he doesn't quite understand yet, which is another thing that I predicted last episode, maybe, about the whole thing with manipulating the mist and changing what people see based on, instead of the mist just being inherently something that creates this narrative to explain godly things, you can change it somehow to make people believe a very specific narrative that explains what's going on. And that's what Talia can do in this chapter. Percy can't do it yet, and he gets a little bit jealous. So yeah, that was, I don't know, it was good to see that they followed through on that little sort of, I don't know, what would you call that? A Chekhov's gun or something? Like, they sort of set it off as, like, a dynamic that I thought was gonna come back.
I mean, if you're gonna, like, set the story, there's, like, really only two ways to really do it. It's either you set the story minutes after the second book, so it's just, like, Percy and everyone trying to figure it out, or you set it this way, where it's, like, time has passed, and it's kind of like, you don't have to worry about the formalities of, like, adjusting Thalia to this new world. And then, you have the idea of Percy and Thalia kind of becoming friends. I think of it more of, like, they're, like, frenemies, or they just have, like, a clash of, like, ideologies almost a little bit. And how when you have Thalia as, it's, like, hard to explain to, like, a caveman what the internet is, almost. It's just, like, you're so, like, out of the loop once you've already died. Whereas here it's a little different because you have the adjustment because Thalia and Annabeth went to a boarding school together. Percy's gone to a different boarding school.
Yeah, there was a lot of exposition dump, which I think you kind of have to do. I did suspect that they were gonna start the chapter off, like, minutes after the big reveal that that's who was underneath the tree, and that was sort of, she was reanimated by the Golden Fleece, but I'm glad we don't need to deal with that, actually, because I agree with you about what you're saying.
So the issue with that is kind of like when you have that, it's pretty much like, to a kid, it's just re-examining everything that's happened. So it's just like, Percy, don't you know Thalia?
Yeah.
She was the one that died. She was the one that helped me. And Thalia's just like, what's happening? Is Green Day still a band? Like, you just have, like, the weird, like, fish out of water story. It's just, like, really, like, stupid because it's just, it happens. And I hate stories like that where you have to, like, fill in the blanks. That's what I like when time passes. Like, obviously, they're going to become friends. They have to do all these things. And that, Thalia is going to adjust to Annabeth, and Thalia has to warm up to Percy, because, again, the prophecy. Yeah,
there's obviously going to be some friction, let's say, between Percy and Thalia, because she's child of Zeus.
Well, that would make sense, because there's that weird thing in Percy Jackson where, like, your godly parents' genetics dictate kind of, like, who you're going to be friends with, almost. It's like a weird thing, actually, if you really think about it.
Yeah, the loyalty thing, but also, I mean, we were talking about how, even in the first book, how Annabeth has some trepidations about Percy because she's she's daughter of Athena, and that there's, like, some tension there somehow. Like, there's always, like, going to be, like, who your godparent is. Then there's, Clarice and Ares. Like, even Clarice is able to get along with Percy, and Ares hates Percy and Poseidon.
I mean, when it comes to that, it's a little different because in Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, the idea is that, Percy and Annabeth, their parents, Athena and Poseidon, actually did get along because they created horses in the chariot together. Here, it's a little different because Zeus and Poseidon don't really have any common ground because, again, in the Lightning Thief, they were ready to go to war with each other. They were ready to destroy the entire world over something that was super petty. And maybe we might see it here. Maybe we might see it within their kids. It's almost like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see more characterization on Thalia. Right now, she feels just a touch one note. It's very like, my name is Ebony to Darkness Dimension Ravenway, like the description of what she's wearing.
We'll probably get into, like, how they describe her, but, like, some of my favorite lines come out of her mouth, and I think it'd be more funny if she was, like, from the 90s. She just doesn't understand, like, time has passed, and she's just, like, wears, like, what, Jinko jeans, and, like, oh god, actually, I don't even think about that.
You could store a lot of magical items in those jeans.
Oh, Jinko jeans. That was a product of
a different time.
Of an apocalyptic time. Do you ever remember Jinko jeans, B?
Oh, I'm aware of. I never owned any. Sure, certainly not. I don't think they made Jinko jeans that would fit me because it would just sort of be more like a tent on the lower half of my body.
For people that don't know what that is, just think of, like, pants that go all the way down to your feet, and you use that to go skateboarding.
And they're, like, about as wide as one human person. Each pant leg.
I love the opening of this. This might be one of the best openings for a book ever, because it's almost, the way I was thinking about it is like an episode of Kim Possible.
Oh, okay.
Almost. And how it opens up with, like, Percy's mom in the minivan, and they're getting ready to like suit up and like help demigods out, and she's just like, okay, Percy, like, I don't know why I'm giving her like a Midwestern accent, but it's like, okay, Percy, you got your sword? Yeah, you got your ambrosia and your nectar, and I packed you some extra drachmas in case you have to contact camp.
Yeah, she'd probably sound like my mom. She'd be like, all right, Percy, all right, I went to Costco. I got you one of those chips. I don't remember what they call it. Whatever. I got you some chips. I don't want you drinking none of that soda crap, so I got you a nice juice. Stay hydrated, okay? Wear your sweater. Do you have your sweater?
Is this like good mom, bad mom almost? It's like I'm like more Midwestern and you're just like, come here, you little
Zack, we can't say that on the show. If you guys haven't seen, there's a comedian, Alyssa Lynn Paris, who is on Twitter, and she posts videos of her doing a character based off of her mom. And yeah, that's my mom, basically.
In my head, what I think about is like Percy's mom is just Linda Belcher, almost, just a little bit.
Oh, you're gonna kill bad guys. I love it. Oh, the Minotaur, he's dead. He's dead.
But I love the opening of this just because, they're in the minivan. Percy hasn't seen Annabeth or Thalia in a couple months because it's winter break, and they're all really nervous. And I love the attribute of when Percy's mom's nervous, she just speaks more. Like, she just puts her foot in her mouth, and they tell them, like, embarrassing stories about Percy as a kid naked in a bathtub, which is a actual thing that moms do, and that's not even, like, oh, God.
My mom has definitely done that, 100%.
Like, if you think about it, most moms have demigod powers of being able to embarrass their kids in a single leap and bound.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hey, do you want to see this? Look at this. Naked baby butt. Look at that. That's so cute. Like, no, why are you showing people this?
Remember that time Zack fell and, like, sprained his knee? It was so much fun. We had pictures of it.
Hey, remember when you were in middle school and everyone in the family got a stomach virus and you you projectile vomited a Pepsi in the garage? Yeah, Mom, I remember.
Oh, man, but
I tell that story too, though, because it's pretty funny.
I really do enjoy the dynamic between Sally Jackson and Percy Jackson a lot here because she gets it. She gets the idea of what a demigod's responsibilities are, and she's like totally willing. It reminds me of the Vine of like the guy that gets into his car. Mom, they're after me. And the mom just doesn't even question it. Like, she's like getting her keys and she's about to go, and she's like, "Who's after you? The bugs."
Yes. Sally is a ride or die kind of mom, and I like that about her because she's still incredibly human, and I think that that's like an interesting contrast to the Poseidon thing of like he's distant, he can't really be around Percy, he can't help him in a direct way.
Well, he's very like, when it comes to Percy, he's very laissez-faire.
He's hands off, exactly. Well, Sally, she's a really good, basically single mom at this point. Taking care of her kid, but he also has very specific needs that aren't like a normal kid, but she still understands that. She's like, I'll drive you to this castle, honey, so you can go help your satyr friend. Like, he's kind of embarrassed by it, but that, I don't know, I think she deserves more appreciation in our fandom.
It takes like a special type of mom to like drive their kid like to Maine and then leave them there and then drive back by herself.
And just trust that things will be okay. Like, she's just like, are you sure you don't want to ride back? Like, she's so loyal to her kid. Like, she doesn't even question it. And she's not, she's not a demigod. She's not involved in this, but she still wants to support him. And I guess it makes sense in a way because she fell in love with a god. So she's used to kind of, I guess, accommodating less than normal circumstances. But yeah, I thought that was kind of like a sweet thing where Percy starts to get embarrassed, but then I don't remember if it was Talia or Annabeth who says that he has a cool mom, Talia said, "Your mom is so cool, Percy. She's pretty okay," I admitted.
So here's the thing when it comes to like mom characters that I've noticed with like protagonists. There's either 3 types of moms. 1, super helpful. 2, Percy Jackson's the latchkey kid and his mom's like low-key abusive. Or 3, they're dead.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Because you need that. I mean, you see that a lot in children's books or whatever, YA, where the parent will be dead or otherwise out of the picture because it kind of frees kids up to, like, go on whatever adventure. But in this, she's helping him go on the adventure. They don't need to kill her off. They don't need her to be otherwise indisposed. You know, the first book, she's pretty indisposed, but the whole lesson that you learn is that what she needed to help herself get out of that situation was just herself, really. I mean, and also the head of Medusa, but that's another story. And I like that she's self-sufficient that way.
I mean, give her a couple more years and she would have, like, whoops, I spilled this deadly nightshade into Gabe's drink. Whoops. How was I supposed to know? I thought it was lavender.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, like, moms or parents, let's just generalize it to parents, is that, let's look at Chronicles of Narnia. How do the kids in that book, how do they, like, escape, and why do they not have parents? It's the Second World War. All the kids of Britain are going to the country because it's safer. So, of course, they can have their adventure. If we look at other stories, such as, like, Cirque du Freak, the main character fakes his own death. So his parents don't know what's happening.
Harry Potter's parents are dead. And then his guardians are terrible. Unfortunate events, their parents are dead, and their guardians are terrible, mostly.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to it, even, like, in Percy Jackson, I like that the parent is alive, but also, again, it's almost like a deterrent, almost. It's just like, Percy could be doing other cool things, but, you know, in the end, he still loves his mom.
Yeah, well, yeah, because she's a little bit protective. Like, even, you know, like, she starts to be very, like, Mrs. Potato Head. Like, don't forget your angry eyes. Where she starts to, like, list off different things, like, extra sweaters, you have my cell phone number, your ambrosia and nectar, Percy, and a golden drachma in case you need to contact camp. Like, yeah, that's a very mom thing. Like, oh, are you sure you have a sweater?
Well, yeah, because it's almost comedic of having, like, a mom that's super protective rather than a parent that's dead, because then their kids can suffer. Like, at least here, it's like Percy's, like, dying of, like, hypothermia, and you can guarantee it that his mom would be, like, climbing up a mountain to give him, like, a blanket and some chicken noodle soup.
It's true. And it would be, like, in one of those thermoses, and then it would play the music from that Campbell's commercial where the kid is a snowman and then melts. That's kind of a viscerally horrifying commercial if you think about it too much.
But yeah, I mean, there's stuff like that. Even, like, in Star Wars, like, Luke's dad is evil. Luke's mom, I guess, died of a broken heart, even though people can get their limbs fixed and be completely, like, melted and still be A-okay.
Yeah.
But I guess, like, the idea of having, like, Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, or even let's look at Spider-Man with, like, Uncle Ben and Aunt May. It's the exact same thing. You have the parents out of the picture, but you have much better parents that, like, kind of, like, are the parents. You don't even have to be blood to, like, love someone. Look at Batman. Alfred.
Yeah, like a parental figure of some variety. Yeah, he has Alfred, exactly. I like having a parental figure. I think it's a nice change of pace, and maybe because I'm so used to also doing an Unfortunate Events podcast that it's like, I like that Percy has a support system. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of refreshing to see a kid in a book who isn't just, like, tragically torn away from his parents and instead has someone who's really supportive of him. I like that aspect of this book. That's kind of like the whole first half of this chapter is really delving into how his mom is, like, sort of embarrassing, but ultimately really great and supportive. And that's kind of how most people feel about their moms, I think, especially when they're, like, 13 or whatever.
I think with most moms, when you're a teenager, they're your greatest enemy. Like, you could, like, date any boy or any girl, but in the end, it's almost like the Beverly Goldberg approach of just, like, you're just scared what your mother will think, almost. It's a very much like Percy Jackson could easily turn into Norman Bates if Sally Jackson was, like, a Norma Bates.
Well, she's, like, not overbearing, though. She's like a normal mom level of overbearing, especially because her kid is really young, you know?
So if she was more protective, she would be like a Norma Bates. But she's not.
Yeah, like, you could even see that, right? Because he's a demigod. Like, the world is dangerous for him. Not a reasonable reaction, but, like, a reaction I could picture is Sally getting really protective and weird over him and not letting him do any of this demigod stuff because she worries about him. But, I mean, as we talked about, I think it was either last chapter or the chapter before in Sea of Monsters, where they kind of have this phone call and she reckons with the fact that she's not a demigod. She doesn't live that life. She doesn't really understand it the way he does, but she still understands him and wants to support him, even if this stuff makes her worry. And even if, he keeps saying, oh, I'll be safe. And there's really no guarantee that he'll be safe, but she just kind of has to be like, okay, this is your fate in life. I had this kid with this god. You're going to have to live the life of a demigod.
She's just like, oh man, why did I fall in love with Jimmy Buffett? Ugh.
Wasting away in Margaritaville.
He told me he was going to sweep me off my feet so we could go into Margaritaville, but he opened up the Margaritaville in my heart.
The Margaritaville in my heart. And then within that heart is a shaker of salt. A reference that definitely none of the younger listeners of the show know what I'm talking about. But anyway.
So moving on a little bit is, Sally Jackson's the great mom. And they go to like this gigantic military school, which is like in the shape of a castle, which is pretty much, okay, let's just set this up. Evil castle in Maine. It's snowing. Did Stephen King write this just a little bit?
Yeah. It sounds pretty Stephen King-esque. What's the name of the place? Now I need to.
So the place is called Westover Hall.
That sounds about right, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sounds very strict and like all the people there are super evil.
Yeah, I mean, it looks it.
Like, all that needs is, like, they pull up in the little minivan and there's just lightning for some weird reason.
Yeah, and then Talia's like, sorry, that's my dad.
Dad, why are you embarrassing me?
I keep, like, picturing... I know that gods can't, like, directly help demigods, but, like, just imagining them, like, dealing with the evil... principal, what is he, vice principal in this scenario, and then all of a sudden just like lightning bolt just zaps him dead. Like, imagine that's how the book ended.
I mean, they had solved so many problems, especially like with like Luke showed up and all of a sudden just a lightning bolt just like obliterates him.
Yeah, a lightning bolt like explodes him and then like a tidal wave washes him away.
No, not even a tidal wave, like a gigantic shark just pops out of the water and like eats him.
A giant shark just swallows him whole. Like in the Meg.
I mean, like, if that could be a possibility for the story, but you don't know that.
Yeah, I really hope that Percy just ends up riding a shark at some point. That's just kind of on my bucket list of things happening in the book.
I mean, I could, like, spoil so many things right now, but, like, damn.
Anyway, so they show up at this place because Grover gave them a distress signal.
Yes, he gave him an SOS, so please, someone help me.
Yeah. I just realized you were doing the song there.
So pretty much what happened is Grover gave him a signal that, he needs help. He's way over his head because he's found 2 demigods. Normally, I guess that's a rare thing of having 2 demigods in one place at the same time.
Yeah, so it sounds pretty imposing, the setting. There's all this like military stuff on the walls, like rifles and battle axes.
My first thought when I thought of this is exactly like Clarice would be so happy to be here. It's just like war banners, antique rifles, battle axes, like it's the works.
Before we get too into describing the school, I did want to mention that we talk all about how great Percy's mom is, and then we have to think about like the sort of family life of the other characters, because then like Annabeth has some stuff going on with her family, which kind of they mention later in the chapter, but then Percy mentions the thing about, she's like, when he says, oh, she's pretty okay about his mom, what about you? You ever get in touch with your mom? And then, of course, Talia says, if that was any of your business, Percy. And then the description, this is kind of what I was getting at with the Ebony Darkness Dementia Raven Way thing.
I think the problem is when you have something like that, you have to like apply like human logic to a mythical story. It's like, okay, so say Thalia contacts her mom. She's been technically she's disappeared for over 4 to 6 years. Legally, she's like dead,
gone. Yeah, her social security number has been expired.
So it's like would be like really weird. I mean, it's like better to be dead than like what's your mom gonna think? Like you go home and she's been remarried and has a bunch of new kids. Like that's some like weird, awkward stuff.
Right, and she's kind of just moved on from grief. Yeah. I'm sure they're going to reckon with that a little bit later on, like, what it must have been like for Talia to be legitimately dead and then not be dead anymore. Like, what does that do to your brain? What does that do to, like, your perception of the world? Because she thought that she died. She, like, remembered dying. But But I guess I just wanted to mention again about like the physical description of Talia too, because I thought it was a little bit funny, and I don't know, maybe just because the description's a little bit dated.
Oh, you mean like what she's wearing, or are you talking about like just who she is as a person?
What she's wearing. I mean, like both, I guess. Like the combination of like, this is a very specific character that I think was popular, especially around the time that this was written.
Oh, we haven't even gotten to my favorite line yet that she spews out. But yeah, and I know what you're getting at here. She's
like the ripped up army jacket, black leather pants, and chain jewelry, the black eyeliner, and those intense blue eyes. But the look she gave me now was a perfect evil 10. So like this like sardonic kind of one-liner producing gothy, punky kind of girl. I've seen that character kind of a million times. The description of it felt a little, I don't know, funny and heavy-handed.
So, B, do you want to know what line actually pisses me off in any book that will take me out of it?
What?
She's not like every other girl. She's not like a normal girl. Yeah. She plays with knives. Like most girls. She does all these things. She's like punk rock. I hate that line. Oh, God, do I hate that line.
Yeah, and I don't think it's not said here, but it's sort of implied like she's different. Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't so thrilled with that characterization, and I hope that she gets a little bit less one-dimensional as the books go on, because right now it feels a little bit like, get it? She's wears dark clothes and she's a little bit meaner than Annabeth. Like, that's kind of the main characterization I'm getting from her. And also that, oh, she has a tragic past. I mean, that's really interesting, and I want that to be delved into more beyond like, oh, she's a goth person. I don't know.
So, B, when I'm thinking about this is, could you characterize Tyson when you first met him?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, but he wasn't as much of a stereotype, I don't think.
No, not necessarily, but like you understand like later on, like your perception of him changed throughout the book. So maybe something like this.
Yeah, so I definitely think they're gonna flesh that out a little bit more with Talia. Just like at first blush, she seems one note. But I hope that, and I suspect, because so far I've enjoyed these books, I think Rick has done a good job with characterization, so I imagine she gets a little bit more interesting as we delve into all of the stuff that she's had to go through, instead of just like, get it? She wears dark clothes,
Like, evil people? Ooh-wee-oo.
Yeah, I feel like that was like such a stock character, like in the early 2000s, where there was always like one goth girl who always had to like say some sort of line, like, just like Raven from Teen Titans, or I'm thinking of that one character from Mean Girls.
I think there's like in that time that was like, you gotta look at it as like The Craft came out. So I think the issue when it comes to like the goth look is that it's such a weird time, because that's where like I know a lot of people that are like goth, and like most of them have not changed since the 80s whatsoever, and it just became like a trend.
I mean, I know people still dress like that, but the specific description of like the very hot topic-y way in which she dresses feels very of its time.
Well, no, it's entirely of its time. This is 2007. This is peak like Teen Titans, The Craft.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was a little earlier, but yeah, like Teen Titans, I'm thinking of like even Billy and Mandy to some extent. There's sort of like Sam Manson from
Invader Zim. Don't forget
exactly.
Invader Zim.
Sam Manson from what is it? Danny Phantom. There's Janice Ian from Mean Girls. There's like tons of characters that are like that. So I hope that it's, even like Wednesday Addams in like the Barry Sonnenfeld Addams Family, like those, they're all kind of cut from a very similar cloth. So I hope that she's not reduced to that dialogue wise, as far as just being like, I'm gonna say the deadpan snarky thing because I'm annoyed by you or whatever.
All I do is hang out in graveyards and listen to Dashboard Confessional.
Yeah, someone who would wear like a Happy Bunny t-shirt that says normal people scare me.
Oh God, I hate that. Oh God, I think we should like move on before we talk about our hate of that stupid stuff. So they get into the school, and like they're automatically like being yelled at by two mysterious figures. Yeah,
the description, I wasn't thrilled with this description.
Okay. I know what you're going to tell me.
Yeah. I heard footsteps on the stone floor, and a man and a woman marched out of the shadows to intercept us. They both had short gray hair and black military-style uniforms with red trim. The woman had a wispy mustache, and the guy was clean-shaven, which seemed kind of backward to me. They both walked stiffly like they had broomsticks taped to their spines. The whole, like, oh, the woman has a mustache, so we're coding her as evil thing, not great, Bob. Like, I think that then that didn't really track as like a super, I'm not saying it's like offensive necessarily, like it's not fully veering into like, you know, oh, you're like a hairy man-hating feminist joke, or even like some sort of transphobic origin of the joke, but it feels a little to me to be like, oh, get it? She's an evil lady and she's masculine, so she has a mustache. It's similar to like the Mrs. Trunchbull thing a little bit, where it's like, oh, let's relate like quote-unquote ugliness to evilness, and ugliness equals being hairy, equals being fat, equals X, Y, and Z, which are not necessarily true. I'm not, it's not the greatest thing as far as characterization.
Not to be like a devil's advocate, but what I was reading at through context is, well, okay, so when it comes to this joke, I feel like to a kid, like, let's be honest here, kids can be really mean when it comes to like visualization, and they will point things out even though they shouldn't be pointed out. Like kids with like acne will point out to other kids with acne.
Oh yeah, and that's true too, because it's Percy's perspective.
I feel like that's kind of the extent that they're trying to go for. Like it's not really, I mean, yes, it's a product of its time. We can always say that, and you have to judge the book when it was written, not in modern standards, or like every book written in the 1800s would be like a nightmare. But like when it comes to like this book, I feel like it's just like a throwaway joke. I mean, if we look in the future, like with like Magnus Chase and having an actual like trans character, so Rick Riordan does change as a person, but I feel like it's one of those jokes at the time.
He didn't even think about it, I don't think.
It's just like, oh, obviously there's something off about them because they're both monsters. Same as with like in Sea of Monsters, we had the characters of like the Canadians. Like I guarantee if we had like one of us was Canadian, we'd have like a problem with like, oh, these Lestragonians, they eat people and like they have tattoos. It's like the exact same thing. It's just supposed to be
like making stereotypes. I get that, and I also understand it's a kid's book, and it's from the perspective of a kid, which I think allows for a little bit more wiggle room when you're thinking like, okay, kids have less of a filter. They'll see someone who looks different in one way or another, and they'll like he doesn't say it out loud or anything, but he kind of makes a mental note like, oh, you look different than what I would expect. There's a story that my mom tells of the time that, I'm not going to name names of who this person was, but I was like a kid in the grocery store, and my mom ran into someone she knew who was like very tall and kind of freaked me out. And I think it was my sister who looked at her feet and then looked all the way up toward her head, and then once she looked up at her head, went, yikes. You know what I mean? Kids just kind of have no filter when it comes to that kind of thing. Yeah. I didn't really want to bring it up just to say like, oh, like let's hate on Rick Riordan for this, and more just like it's all about mindfulness, I guess. When something like that comes up in a book, you try to, examine your biases and think like, okay, well, like why are quote unquote ugly people considered evil oftentimes in books and things like that. As long as you're reading it within that lens, I think that it's fine.
So when it comes to this, I think the tension of the scene's also kind of broken with the introduction of Grover again. He's just like, guys, you made it. And they're like, what do you mean? These people are students. Because
like, wait, what?
Thalia had snapped her fingers and she gave him some like sass, and she manipulated the mist. Something that Percy had to have, like he had to have like a complaining fit about like, why did Chiron show her that? Why didn't you show me?
Yeah, he gets a little bit like sad sack for a second there. He's like, well, I wanted to learn it, and he mentioned to me he would, and then he never did, and he felt a little bit insecure. Hold on, I want to actually find the way that he described that. How did you do that finger snap thing? You mean the mist? Hasn't Chiron shown you how to do that yet? An uncomfortable lump formed in my throat. Chiron was our head trainer at camp, but he'd never shown me anything like that. Why had he shown Talia and not me?
Because Thalia is legally pronounced dead, and she kind of needs those tools to survive. I don't know, just a thought.
Whiny, whiny, whine, whine.
So what happens next is it kind of actually works. Like the two people like kind of like lean up and get straight, and they realize, oh yeah, they're students, and they've manipulated the mist. And all of a sudden, Grover comes in like, guys, you made it. And the Gottschalk and the other teacher are just like, what? What do you mean? They live here. I'm like, oh yeah, they made the punch. It's real good. I love it. It's so great.
Yeah, like a very typical, like, teen comedy thing of being like, yes, we're hiding a thing, and my name is Mr. Janitor, and I'm the janitor, here to sweep things up. Like, when someone comes up with an excuse kind of on the spot, and it doesn't sound very believable.
Or like one of my all-time favorite jokes, which I'm happy people do now in real life, is when two people get on each other's shoulders, and they put a trench coat on, and they try to buy stuff. It never gets old. But okay, so let's take a moment to appreciate the names of the two teachers. So the vice principal is named Mr. Thorne, and the woman is named Mrs. Gottschalk. Which just sounds evil. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, both of them don't sound great. I mean, Thorne is like kind of almost heavy-handed there. Your name is Thorne, and you're a villain.
Prickly.
Good job.
So they believe them. They end up going to the auditorium where they're playing like music, and we'll get to the music very soon because this is my absolute favorite part, where I was like transported back to 2004.
Oh yeah, the music is choice.
But they go in there and they automatically spot the two people, Bianca and Nico D'Angelo.
A brother and sister, he said. They're 10 and 12. I don't know their parentage, but they're strong. We're running out of time, though. I need help. So basically, that's why they're both demigods, because they're related. They're 10 and 12. We don't know who their godly parents are yet, and that's kind of the extent of what we know.
So they're in like a dangerous situation. If they accidentally tell them who they are, they'll be put into more danger because I guess their scent like gets more pungent.
Their scent gets stronger if they know who they are, which is an interesting, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Like an interesting, wait for it. Mechanic. Yeah, an interesting mechanic of the story where you could easily go, okay, well, why don't they just tell them and get out of there much sooner? But we have the thing of the vice principal Thorne keeps blocking them. And if they tell them the truth about what's going on with them being demigods, that actually increases the chances of monsters going after them. So that's like a dual reason why they can't really know.
And also the most important thing is Grover gives them the piece of information. Oh yeah, Mr. Thorne is a monster. You've talked to the big baddie. So they already know that he's like looking at them, and he knows that they're kind of like a ruse.
He's Dr. Thorne, not Mr. Thorne.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know, I hate teachers that do that, or they have to like throw your doctor, Mister.
I didn't spend 4 years going to evil medical school to be called Mr. Thorne.
Let me step back and let me just take a moment to compose myself. I'm sorry, Dr. Thorne. And you know what his favorite show is, B?
What?
The Wild Thornberries.
Mm-hmm. A very good joke, for sure. That joke is more dated than the references in this chapter.
So kind of like the plot that's happening is a lot of it is basically they can't get to the kids, so that they have to do is almost like what they do in True Lies, where it's like we have to dance, we have to pretend to be nonchalant.
Yeah, this felt very fan fiction-y to me. Did it feel that way to you? Where it's like, oh no, we gotta dance now.
Oh no, most definitely. This seems like really fan fiction-y. It's very like Yule Ball.
Yeah, exactly. Or like the dance scene in Stranger Things. Like, yeah, let's just like, there seems to be a dance all the time happening in these kids' books, and you gotta dance with the girl who's cute and makes you nervous, right, Percy?
You gotta dance with the girl? But if they don't meet the enchantment under the sea dance and they don't kiss, I won't be born.
So they decide to dance. Okay, I have to read this discussion that Annabeth and Percy has about dancing. Dance, you guys, Talia ordered. You look stupid just standing there. I looked nervously at Annabeth, then at the groups of girls who were roaming the gym. Well, Annabeth said, who should I ask? She punched me in the gut. Me, seaweed brain. Oh, right.
If we're talking about, like, dances right now, like, I can actually successfully say I've never gone to a high school dance. I didn't even go to my prom.
I went to 2 proms. I went to junior prom and senior prom, in dresses that I will never wear again.
I didn't go to any because I didn't have anyone to go with. And, like, I was also, like, a moody gamer kid. So all I did was play Gears of War, and I was happy at it.
Yeah. I mean, we still make fun of the limo driver we had to our prom because he was incredibly gung-ho. He's like, do you want napkins? We could do your school colors. What are your school colors? We got napkins. We got, use guys like sparkling lemonade. The joke, use guys like sparkling lemonade, is something we still talk about 10 years later.
Like, my favorite thing about this, though, is also the description they give to, like, going to military school and this all the people that actually get to, like, it's almost like the best way to put it is like Footloose, where everyone's able to dance and like be happy. And it's like the way to describe like all the girls like are kind of like in like a piranha pattern, and they like attack a boy and like they dance and then they go to another boy, and I'm like,
yeah,
oh my God, this is so accurate. Rick Riordan, did you chaperone many middle school dances? I'm sure the answer is yes, quite a few.
Oh, I'm sure he did, right? Because he was a teacher. Yeah, so I think his descriptions of teenage behavior are very well observed, is the phrase I would use. Like, I think he knows how teenagers act, even if some of the stuff is dated as far as specific references. Like, I mean, what was it? I think it was Lightning Thief that referenced Hilary Duff.
V, can I talk about it now while we're on the topic of outdatedness?
Yeah.
My favorite line in this entire thing. Thalia nodded. She cocked her ear to the music and made a face. Ugh, who chose the Jesse McCarthy? Grover looked hurt. I did. Oh gods, Grover, that is so lame. Can't you play like Green Day or something? Green who? Never mind, let's dance.
Jesse McCartney and Green Day, you guys. Wow. What a blast from the past.
Green Day, I was like, Jesse McCarthy. I haven't thought of that in so long.
Okay, and are there any, like, 12-year-olds listening right now who listen to either of those bands? Please write in and tell us. Have you listened to Jesse McCartney and or Green Day? I suspect Green Day is more likely because they're still kind of more of a thing. Does Jesse McCartney still make music? I don't know if he does. I remember hearing rumors that he was related to Paul McCartney, but that's not true.
Well, I'm sure Jesse McCarthy is like a toll booth operator now, so.
I think that's the best case scenario, being like a popular, like, musician, like pop musician on the Disney Channel in the early 2000s. Like, if you're a toll booth operator, at least you didn't end up, like, I don't know, having a DUI or something. Jeez, what a very specific reference of its time. I mean, people still listen to Green Day, to be fair. But not so much Jesse McCartney. That's not really a thing.
I think the most important thing when it comes to this chapter, again, is it's the first time that Percy and Annabeth have actually, like, held each other. Oh, God, this sounds awful.
Well, yeah, like the first time they're sort of, like, overtly flirtatious, I guess.
This is the first time they're intimate with each other?
Well, no, because she kissed him at the end of the last book, remember?
Oh, yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, they do kiss.
Yeah.
But this is different. This is, like... Kissing is one thing, but, like, I get to hold a girl's hip as we dance?
Yeah. Like a extremely Dipper Pines voice. It's a girl! Okay!
Or it's like, I always think of, like, the part where Dipper's on the couch and it's like, hey, could you stop touching my bra?
Exactly, yeah. Just like a sort of squealing, cracking, pubescent boy voice.
So what ends up happening next is... They turn their heads because they're getting into an intimate discussion because Annabeth is like, I think I'm going to be moving to California with my dad, but he knows that, demigods aren't supposed to go there. But then Percy has something actually I have to tell you.
Yeah, San Francisco, specifically.
Oh no, San Francisco is going to be hanging out with Lemony Snicket. I mean, okay, so I want to kind of talk about the conversation Annabeth has with Percy because it is like a really interesting conversation that they have because Annabeth is so excited about her new school. Like, she's talking about all the architecture she's doing.
Yeah, she was talking about designing a thing for Ground Zero before there was a thing at Ground Zero.
I kind of like the conversation they have because it's like Percy's kind of like getting nervous about this. Like, he's like, oh man, like I don't get to see Annabeth. She, she went to New York. She lives in a boarding school now, and I don't get to see her that often. And like, she's going to be moving again. She's going to be moving to San Francisco.
Yeah. And she's like actually having a nice time at her school while like Percy's like still having a trouble adjusting and making friends.
In my mind, I was thinking about it's like, so how is Percy going to get expelled from this school?
Who knows? Probably fighting a monster. Just a wild guess.
So he's already blown up one school. He's been kicked out of another. Do you think it's going to be he gets dropped because of his GPA?
Yeah, I mean, that too. It's kind of hard to focus when you're a kid with a learning disability who also is constantly being pursued by monsters.
Yeah, that could be it. Or secretly his principal's a monster, so he's just purposely lowering his GPA.
Yeah, I mean, here there's the vice principal's a monster. It's kind of funny. Like, I keep thinking of
Vice Principal Nero.
Vice Principal Nero. Yeah, like only vice principals are evil. You never see the actual principal.
Oh, that's because like he's probably the more evil person.
Mm-hmm. He's hiding out somewhere.
That's Dr. Kronos to you, B.
Dr. Kronos. I went to evil school for evil people. It's an accelerated 2-year evil doctorate degree.
But I thought the most interesting thing is that Annabeth is kind of like bothered by this as well because, again, she doesn't want to move to San Francisco, but there's also something else she wants to do.
There's something going on with San Francisco that she sort of alludes to, and then Percy doesn't want to sound dumb, so we don't find out what that means.
But the way it kind of sounds like she might not be coming back to camp.
Yeah, and so that, yeah, they sort of get cut off.
So the reason why they're cut off is because Percy turns his head, and Bianca and Nico are not there. They have disappeared.
Yeah, so that now they need to find them, and then they turn around and they realize that Grover and Talia aren't there, so then they're like... Annabeth kind of books it in one direction to try and find them. Percy turns around and doesn't... They're all gone now, and he's confused about where they went, so then he looks over and actually sees the vice principal and Nico and... What's the other kid's name?
Oh, Bianca?
Nico and Bianca are being sort of whisked out the door by the vice principal, so he decides to follow them without finding his friends first, because by the time he finds them, they may be gone.
In my head, it would be like a comedic scene where they have to, like, Annabeth and Percy have to, like, dance to find Thalia and Grover.
Yeah, so he kind of, like, decides to take it on himself, which, not the best move. I kind of get why he does this, because he doesn't know where any of his friends went, and then if he took the time to find them, then he might, like, lose their trail, and he needs to go and get these demigod kids who are being pursued by the monster. So he books it out the door, he takes out Riptide, and then this doesn't go so well.
He finds them super easily. Like, that's the surprising thing. Like, he finds them and they're terrified of him.
Yeah, they're right there, because it almost feels like a trap.
Huh. It's a trap!
Exactly, Admiral Akbar.
But, so they're scared of Percy, and he's like, no, don't be scared of me. I'm Percy Jackson. I'm a hero. And they're not scared of him. It's the old-timey joke of there's something behind him.
There's something behind it, which, I mean, that was so frustrating, because in a visual medium, even more so, you just know that they're going to turn and see the villain, but just like Bianca's eyes widened, her fist clenched. Only too late did I realize what her look meant. She wasn't afraid of me, she was trying to warn me.
So, like, in a visual medium, like, what would happen is it would be like a wide shot from behind as like a gigantic looming shadow would envelop Percy and then the other two people. That's exactly what would happen.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, this kind of ends on a cliffhanger, this chapter.
Yes, because what happens is Percy gets hit by a spike. Who knew that Mr. Thorne throws spikes?
And then he's like, wait a second. This is poison. I know this feeling. It is poison.
Oh, yes, poison. I'm actually allergic to poison. It kind of causes me to die.
Yeah, and then he starts to talk about how he has to focus so he doesn't pass out. Then Dr. Thorne appears.
Okay, let's take a minute to appreciate B. How many times has Percy been poisoned?
3 times?
Yes. First time was on the Gateway Arch. Second time was when Luke poisoned him. And this is number 3?
Was there another time? Well, he did get turned into a guinea pig that one time.
But that's not really poison. It's just...
Yeah, that's like a potion or whatever.
It was just a potion.
Was there another poisoning thing? No, I think that was it. So, yeah, Dr. Thorne appears. Okay, the description of him is spooky as heck. He stepped into the dim light He still looked human, but his face was ghoulish. He had perfect white teeth, and his brown/blue eyes reflected the light of my sword. Right, we forgot about that description. One eye is blue, one is brown. Heterochromia is very spooky, I guess.
Like I said before, I was the president of the anime club.
You bring that up a lot for something so embarrassing. I would never mention that.
I'm coming from a place of experience. Like, I've seen people's OCs. I've seen people's fan arts. People always, if you want to be cool or spooky or like supernatural, you have one eye a different color than the other one. Yeah. Like that is a staple in animes.
My great uncle had heterochromia. There are many huskies that have heterochromia.
I know a couple of huskies that have that. But I mean, that's like one of the things that's just like if you want to have like a spooky character.
Yeah.
Maybe not now, because it's like one of those things where having a different eye color is just like, it's just like one of those things. But like back in the day, like if you had a character that had two different eye colors or like a eye scar, like they were badass.
It's like, oh, they're different. Maybe both a scar and a different color eye. Yeah. The description earlier when they first encounter Dr. Thorne is that Percy decides that one of the eyes has to be fake, but he can't decide which one, which is definitely uncanny, where he's like, okay, well, they're different colors. One of them is fake, but I don't even know which one it is. He appears, he's spooky, got two different colored eyes, says, all three of you will come with me. Quietly, obediently. If you make a single noise, if you call out for help or try to fight, I will show you just how accurately I can throw. That's another weird spooky thing about him, is you see him, but then the darts seem to be coming from behind him. So, I don't know where that's coming from exactly. It's like another thing.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. Like, let's think of it, the description they gave to him is he moves kind of awkwardly and stiff.
Is he a plant?
Oh, no. He's evil plant dad from Stay Out of the Basement.
Does he have some sort of, like, ability to control vines that shoot poison darts or something? Because that's kind of the vibe I'm getting from him. His name is Thorn. Poison. You know.
Well, I could spoil it for you, but I think maybe you should read the next chapter. Maybe something might happen. So, B, what is the name of the next chapter?
The name of the next chapter is The Vice Principal Gets a Missile Launcher.
Okay, so B, what do you predict happens next chapter?
He gets a missile launcher, I imagine. I don't know what that means. Is it a literal, like, military-grade missile launcher? Is it like the thing I was thinking of with, like, the vine things that shoot poison dart? I don't know.
I think it means, like, what it means, B. I think he actually gets a missile launcher. Maybe Rick Riordan isn't as coy.
Like a... Where, though? Oh, it's a military school. Oh, my God. I forgot about that. I was like, wait, why would they have a missile launcher? That's why. They're a military school. Great. Okay. Well, this is lovely.
Let's take a moment to appreciate that there's missile launchers at a military school.
Surely the kids will not use this and kill themselves. It'll turn out great.
Next, they're going to have a Davy Crockett.
We weren't allowed to have plastic knives at my high school. We just had to, like, take the edge of a fork and cut that horrible Salisbury steak.
For us, B, we actually had an archery class.
Oh, we had archery, too. That's true. We did archery. But the arrows were pretty dull.
Well, also, B, you got to remember my school is a sports school. Like, for us, we had javelin throwing, and, like, we had a bunch of, like, things that, like, for some reason, like, you throw a pointy stick and it accidentally impales somebody, it's a problem, but for our school, you become a Laker.
I can't believe we're done with the first chapter of the third book already. We're really moving along here. Yeah,
I'm really excited because this is, like, one of my favorite books. I feel like when it comes to this book, there's a lot more interesting elements to it, which I'm so excited for you to read, and I'm not going to spoil a single thing because I find to be one of the most engaging books, because when you have a book that is set halfway through a series, it's either kind of like, I always like to call it the pivot for any book, because usually it decides like, maybe there's a twist, maybe there's something you don't really think about, or maybe, you know, the real plot is starting to get along very nicely.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where this goes. I have a few vague ideas about where it's headed as far as like, okay, well, Talia, obviously, there's sort of a natural arc as far as her character goes. Same with Luke, same with Percy. We have to reckon with the prophecy that we know about. Like, there's kind of some hints here and there about kind of where the story's going, but there's a lot of things that could change in the interim as far as like the specifics of how we get there. Yeah, we still have to worry about Kronos. That's the thing that we're gonna have to worry about, I guess, for like the whole series, I imagine, because he's like the big bad.
Yeah, especially like having to deal with like the moment when Thalia meets up with Luke. Like that's going to be an interesting dynamic that's going to happen.
Yeah, their interaction after her literally dying and then coming back to life. Yeah, there's a lot of things that can happen from there as far as like how people react. You have to also think about the gods and how they have their own whims and things that they want out of the situation. Yeah. I don't know. I can't make too specific predictions.
Now, the biggest thing, B, is this is called the Titan's Curse. So far, we've had the Lightning Thief, which is a title, which is very, self-explanatory. The Sea of Monsters, which has been a self-explanatory title. Now, when it comes to the Titan's Curse, what do you think that's supposed to mean? What do you think that curse might be?
So yeah, the Titans are Kronos and such. What is their curse? It's like a literal curse? I'm trying to think about who that would apply to. The gods? I don't know. Like, I don't know what the curse would entail exactly.
Well, that certainly is something that we could think about, as well as what type of myths are going to be inspired by this story, because the first one was Perseus. The last one we did was about Odysseus. Who could this Greek hero be based off of, almost? Or this set of stories?
Right, like what story is this following? Yeah, I'll have to think about that. Did you get any messages this week?
So we do have a email from Winter. Hi, Zack and B. I'm a huge fan of your podcast. I am 11 years old, from New Jersey, near Medusa, and my godly parent is Hades. It is super entertaining to hear B trying to guess what happens next. Here's a fun fact, because why not? You guys are reading The Titan's Curse. Bear the time of the story it takes place in December. Anyway, I hope you guys have fun and have a great day and keep staying mortal. From Winter.
Yeah, you were just talking about how the timing of this works out really well, that it's during winter break and we're in December right now. So it's actually like almost exactly the time that it takes place.
So the great thing about it is that we'll get to be in Christmas whimsy until May.
That's true. Yeah. So it's appropriate now, but then as we keep reading.
B, it's like July. Can you take down your Christmas lights? No, Christmas is just right around the corner. So we did get one new iTunes review.
A pretty long one, actually. It says, love this podcast by Human Person Review.
Oh, so this sounds like a normal human. So let's hear this person out.
Human. Yeah, this is just from yesterday, actually. Human Person says, so first off, I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of podcasts. Nothing against them, just not my cup of tea. I don't remember how I found this, maybe Reddit. But I'm glad I did. I'm a major fan of the Percy Jackson series. It's my favorite story of all time, with the 5th book being my favorite. This podcast has content that is quite almost a dream come true. The whole concept of it is brilliant. The insight and the ideas and analysis are all intriguing. It also helps that both hosts are wonderful. The only thing I don't like about this podcast is the 6 days every week that we don't get an episode. But I get why that's there. I'm glad I'm here, and I can't wait for each new episode. Keep it up. Wow, what a really nice message. That's such a thoughtful review. That's literally the best thing you could say about the show.
That's so sweet. Like, oh my God, that makes me so happy. I mean, if we could do this as a daily show, like, we would be so thrilled if we could do it as a daily show. But I think having that week span of like, well, I always think of like the episode of, is it Fairly Odd Parents, where Timmy wishes that Christmas is every day, and every day there's like less presents. It's kind of like the exact same thing. It's like,
yeah.
Guys, like podcasters need to recharge their batteries almost a little bit. And it's like, for us, when it comes to like reviewing this, we read it and then we kind of like mull it over for like the week.
Yeah, exactly. I like to think of the chapter we read for at least a couple days. And then also, yeah, if we did the podcast every day, I feel like the premise of it would change from let's talk about Percy Jackson to how do B and Zack slowly begin to hate each other? Just sort of like a social experiment about how long it takes for our friendship to degrade because we're just like exhausted and hungry.
Wait, so we're just spending every waking second with each other? God, this sounds like the Stanford prison experiment.
Yeah, it does. It seriously does. I keep thinking about how, I was talking about this with my friend Sarah, who I've mentioned many a time on the show, that our senior year of high school, we had something crazy like 5 classes together, like 3 free periods, and then like 2 actual proper classes together. It was insane. And I saw her every day for like hours. And we really, truly started to hate each other, even though she's my best friend of all time. And she would go and talk to my sister and go, oh my God, B is driving me nuts. I hate them. I cannot deal with their nonsense anymore. And then I would go also to my sister and go, Sarah is ridiculous. I'm being driven crazy by her. I cannot deal with her anymore. And so, like, Taryn was just in the middle, like, yeah, you both are kind of like losing your minds. Maybe like, you know, take a break from seeing each other for a little bit.
So, like, for me, when it came to, like, college and being in the same theater with people for, like, weeks on end, like, we would be there from, like, sunrise to sundown. Oh, it gets to you. Oh, my God, does it get to you?
Yeah. As much as Zack is my friend, I think that would happen with any normal human.
We would start to deteriorate, and also our podcast would probably be like, so, B, we could talk about Percy Jackson, but how was your day? And we start talking about, like, everything other than Percy Jackson almost.
Yeah, it would get very surreal, I think, really quickly. I would just start riffing about weird stuff that happened that day. We'd accidentally turn into a Christmas podcast, probably, because that's, like, all we talk about off mic is just me being like, yep, I put up more Christmas lights. Yep, I made peppermint bark. Yeah, I'm making toffee bark tomorrow.
And then I would just be talking about, yep, I watched this movie today, and then I watched this movie the other day.
Yep, still Jewish. Yep, still don't celebrate Christmas.
But that's kind of the exciting thing about our show is it gives people something to look forward to. For all we know, we could have 365 episodes, so you guys could listen to an episode a day eventually. Because there's some podcasts that are like 1,000 episodes, and you could just like listen one a day and never get bored. But, you know, we really appreciate it, especially, like, taking the time to, like, clickety-clack on that keyboard and, like, send something nice.
Yeah, I appreciate literally every review that we get. It's really sweet, especially something like, you know, a really long review like that, you know, they take the time to describe all the different ways they like the show and that they enjoy it. And I'm glad we're doing, like, justice to people who care about these books because, again, I'm, like, I wasn't really part of this fandom off the bat, so I hope that you guys, you know, enjoy what I have to say.
Well, especially it's like the mentality of like there's been so many Percy Jackson podcasts that it's kind of like just peter out, and like for us it's like I don't want to say we're not the voice of the community, like not even by far, but it's like I consider us like a hub where like we find cool things, people can send us things, and you get to hear your voices heard. Who knows who's hearing it? And for us, it's just a lot of fun. I get to hang out with B, one of my best friends, and we get to hang out and we talk about like random things that's happened and kind of like dissect these books. And being able to get like that type of feedback is almost amazing because we just had this person that is 11 years old that emails us. We've gotten people that like don't like podcasts to listen to our show. I think that might be like a staple right there.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the best review you could give. I don't like podcasts, but I like this one. Like, wow. I'm sure that there are even better ones out there than the one you're listening to right now, but thank you.
Thank you so much for that. We really appreciate it. I think that kind of like wraps up the show a little bit. I think we've kind of talked ourselves to death a little bit.
Yeah, well, I guess we're getting a little sentimental because we're starting another book. We're wrapping up the year. There's a lot going on.
It's the most wonderful time of the year. So, B, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at bkellygorman, and you can find me on Tumblr, if it's still a website, at twinpoetry.tumblr.com.
If you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at Suda41, that's SUDA41. If you want to follow our show on Twitter, that's at halfblood_radio. If you want to email our show, you can email us at radiocamphhalfblood@gmail.com. And you could also go to our t-shirt page at TeePublic. So just type in Radio Camp Half-Blood and you'll be able to get some cool merch. Currently, right now, as this is recorded, we should still be on sale right now. I think this should be 30% off, so check that out. You can wrap all of that cool Radio Camp Half-Blood merch. We'd love to see pictures of that.
Yep. You can get a Radio Camp Half-Blood t-shirt for $14 on TeePublic as we speak. Get it for the holidays. I think things might come by then if you get it.
I'm waiting until the day we get our own Funko Pops. I don't think there's been any podcasters that have gotten Funko Pops of themselves yet.
Really? Even the McElroys?
If that happened, I would buy a McElroy Funko Pop.
I could definitely picture Griffin as a Funko Pop. Can you just see it? I could really see that.
Hey, I just saw they have a George R. R. Martin one, and I really want to get it.
That's pretty funny, honestly.
But there aren't no podcaster ones. But I think that kind of like wraps.
I think it does. I think yeah.
Yes. So Funko, if you're listening, would like a pop of ourselves, just a little bit. I personally want to get like a Ray Bradbury pop figure, but that's just me.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of a pipe dream, but maybe it'll happen. Get a karate chop action figure of B with their microphone. Yeah.
With real kung fu grip.
Buzz Lightyear's rescue.
Well, I'm Zack.
I'm B.
And keep staying mortal.
Bye, guys.
Bye.